The courtroom falls silent as Marcus Reynolds, 17, struggles forward on his crutches. Judge Harrington, 60s, sighs impatiently, tapping his gavel. When Marcus requests to represent himself, the judge's condescending laughter echoes through the chamber. "Son, this is a federal courtroom, not a high school debate club. Your disability doesn't entitle you to waste our time." The large federal courtroom is packed with lawyers and officials in expensive suits. Marcus walks slowly using his crutches and people turn to stare at him. Some whisper behind their hands. Judge Harrington watches from his high bench with an annoyed look. He doesn't try to hide how little respect he has for Marcus. When Marcus stops in front of the bench, the judge rolls his eyes. "Your Honor, I'd like to represent myself in this case," Marcus says clearly. The judge laughs out loud. Several lawyers join in, chuckling and smirking. Judge Harrington shakes his head. "You can barely walk across my courtroom," the judge says. "What makes you think you can handle a federal case?" Marcus stands straight, holding his crutches firmly. He doesn't react to the laughter around him. Marcus stands calmly at the center of the courtroom, leaning on his crutches. Judge Harrington looks down at him with a smirk. "Maybe you should focus on your physical therapy instead of playing lawyer," he says loudly. Some people in the audience laugh. The prosecutor, Ms. Baker, stands up with a confident smile. "Your Honor, perhaps we should assign proper counsel to the young man. This case is clearly beyond his abilities." Marcus doesn't show any anger. He simply waits for them to finish. "Tell me, son," Judge Harrington continues, tapping his pen against his desk, "did you even finish high school, or was that too difficult with your condition?" The courtroom gets uncomfortably quiet. Marcus takes a deep breath. In a quick flashback, we see a younger Marcus in a hospital bed, surrounded by law books. His legs are in casts, but his mind is focused on the legal texts in front of him. Back in the courtroom, Marcus adjusts his grip on his crutches. His eyes show determination, not hurt. The prosecutor, Ms. Baker, stands up and presents her case with confidence. "Your Honor, the evidence against Mr. Reynolds is clear. He violated 3 separate ordinances when he organized that protest. We have video footage, witness statements, and his own social media posts as proof." She sits down, giving Marcus a pitying look. Judge Harrington turns to Marcus. "Well, anything to say in your defense?" Marcus moves forward slightly. "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to question the validity of the video evidence." His voice is steady and professional, surprising everyone. "On what grounds?" the judge asks with a raised eyebrow. "The video was obtained without a proper warrant," Marcus says. According to the Supreme Court ruling in Carpenter v. United States, 2018, digital evidence requires specific procedures. The judge's smug expression falters. The prosecutor quickly flips through her notes. "Furthermore," Marcus continues, "the city ordinance being cited, Section 47.3, was amended last year. The prosecution is referencing an outdated version." The courtroom buzzes with whispers. Judge Harrington tries to interrupt, but Marcus politely continues, citing exact case numbers and legal precedents that even the most experienced lawyers in the room recognize. The judge bangs his gavel, trying to regain control of his courtroom, but it's clear that something unexpected is happening. The courtroom is no longer laughing. Marcus stands confidently as he dismantles the prosecution's case point by point. "Your Honor, I'd also like to address the constitutional issues at play. The Supreme Court ruling in Tinker v. Des Moines clearly established that." Judge Harrington interrupts, his face reddening. "Where exactly did you learn all this?" Marcus reaches into his bag and pulls out a folder. "I graduated from Harvard Law School last year, Your Honor. I was the youngest graduate in the school's history." Gasps fill the courtroom. "That's impossible," the prosecutor stammers. Marcus hands copies of his credentials to the bailiff. "I completed my undergraduate studies through advanced placement at 14. I was accepted to Harvard Law at 15. I graduated with highest honors before my accident last year." Judge Harrington examines the documents, his face growing pale. "You're Marcus Reynolds?" he asks, voice suddenly uncertain. "The Marcus Reynolds who wrote the paper on judicial overreach in the digital age?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus replies calmly. "The same paper your court cited in the Wilson case last month." The judge's arrogant expression completely disappears as he realizes he's been mocking a legal prodigy whose work he's quoted in his own rulings. The courtroom is completely silent now. Judge Harrington shifts uncomfortably in his seat. "So, you're a law school graduate," the judge says, trying to sound composed. "That doesn't change the facts of this case." Marcus looks directly at the judge. "Actually, Your Honor, there's more to this than you know." He pulls out another document from his folder. I didn't choose your courtroom by accident. The prosecutor looks confused. Marcus turns to address the whole room. For the past 6 months, I've been working with the Justice Department's Ethics Committee. We've been investigating a pattern of rulings against defendants with disabilities. Judge Harrington's face turns white. This is outrageous. I'll have you held in contempt. The statistics don't lie, Your Honor, Marcus continues calmly. Defendants with visible disabilities receive 40% harsher sentences in your courtroom compared to other judges in this district. Marcus hands more documents to the bailiff. These are records of 27 cases where you made disparaging remarks about disabled defendants, similar to what you said to me today. People in the gallery begin whispering loudly. A reporter in the back row is frantically taking notes. I volunteered to be part of this case specifically to document your behavior firsthand, Marcus explains. Everything that happened here today has been recorded as part of the official investigation. The judge, once so powerful and intimidating, now looks trapped and afraid. The morning sun sliced through the Venetian blinds of Marcus Reynolds' modest apartment. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since 5 a.m. News alerts, text messages, calls from numbers he didn't recognize. He sat on the edge of his bed, crutches leaning against the nightstand, and took a deep breath before reaching for the newspaper that had been slipped under his door. His own face stared back at him from the front page of the Washington Post, a candid shot captured as he exited the courthouse. The headline blazed across the top: Disabled Legal Prodigy Exposes Judicial Bias. Smaller papers were even less subtle: Teen Attorney Humbles Federal Judge, and Crutches and Constitution, How a 17-Year-Old Outsmarted the System. Marcus folded the paper carefully and set it aside. Fame had never been his goal. Justice had. By the time he made his way down the courthouse steps that morning, the media presence had tripled. Cameras flashed like strobe lights as he carefully navigated each step, refusing any offers of assistance. Microphones thrust toward his face from every direction. Marcus, how does it feel to take down one of the most respected judges in the circuit? Shouted a reporter from CNN. This wasn't about taking anyone down, he responded, his voice steady despite the chaos. This was about ensuring our justice system works for everyone, regardless of physical ability. A woman from the Washington Post pushed forward. Is it true Judge Harrington is facing an ethics investigation because of your case? Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. Judge Harrington's conduct speaks for itself. The Judicial Review Board will make their determination based on evidence, not headlines. Will he be removed from the bench? Yelled another reporter from the back of the crowd. That's not my decision to make, Marcus replied, continuing his careful descent. The system has mechanisms to address judicial misconduct. I trust they'll work as designed. Meanwhile, inside the federal courthouse, the atmosphere was tense and subdued. Clerks whispered in corners. Lawyers gathered in small groups, dissecting yesterday's events with a mixture of awe and professional concern. Many had witnessed Judge Harrington's cruelty firsthand over the years but had never dared challenge it. In his chambers, Judge Walter Harrington sat alone at his mahogany desk. Cardboard boxes lined the walls, some already filled with law books and personal effects. He hadn't been officially removed, not yet, but the administrative leave was effective immediately. His clerk had already been reassigned. The judge's hands trembled slightly as he flipped through a legal journal. His reading glasses sat low on his nose as he studied an article titled, Constitutional Protections in the Digital Age, written by Marcus Reynolds at the age of 16. The margin notes were meticulous, the arguments airtight. Harrington had cited this very article in 3 separate opinions without ever checking the author's age. A knock at the door made him look up. His attorney stood in the doorway, her expression grim. The Ethics Committee wants to meet tomorrow, she said simply. Harrington nodded, returning to the article without responding. He turned the page and saw a professional headshot of Marcus, younger, before the accident, standing proudly in a debate team photo. He closed the journal with a heavy sigh. Across town, in the gleaming offices of Winters and Blackwell, one of D.C.'s most prestigious law firms, Marcus sat across from Maxwell Winters himself. The senior partner's corner office offered panoramic views of the Capitol, the Washington Monument visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. I won't beat around the bush, Marcus, Winters said, sliding a leather portfolio across his immaculate desk. We want you. Your starting salary would be 3 times our standard for first-year associates. Private office, full benefits, and accommodations for any physical needs, of course. Marcus opened the portfolio. The numbers made him blink twice. That's generous, he acknowledged. It's capitalism, Winters smiled. You're a hot commodity right now. The publicity alone is worth it, but your legal mind is the real prize. We followed your academic career for years. He leaned forward. Think of the cases you could take on with our resources behind you. Marcus studied the offer letter, running his fingers along the embossed letterhead. It represented everything he'd once dreamed of: prestige, financial security, influence. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Winters, he said finally, closing the portfolio. But I've made other plans. Later that afternoon, in a converted brownstone on the less fashionable side of town, Marcus pushed open a freshly painted door. The sign above it read Equal Justice Initiative, Disability Rights Legal Clinic. The elevator had been a recent installation, still smelling of new metal and lubricant. Inside, the space was modest but warm. 4 young attorneys looked up from their work as he entered. They had all volunteered after reading about his case. Recent graduates passionate about civil rights but disillusioned by traditional career paths. Welcome to your new headquarters, said Amara Johnson, a brilliant recent graduate who had turned down corporate offers to join Marcus's vision. It's not exactly Winters and Blackwell, but... It's perfect, Marcus interrupted, taking in the simple desks, the second-hand law books, and the determined faces of his team. Absolutely perfect. Over the next few hours, they outlined their strategy. They would start with cases similar to Marcus's, instances of explicit or implicit bias against defendants with disabilities. Then broaden to educational access, employment discrimination, housing issues. The list was depressingly long. We won't be able to take every case, cautioned David Park, another team member. There are thousands of people facing these barriers. Then we'll create templates, Marcus replied. Legal resources other attorneys can use. We'll train advocates, educate judges. This isn't just about winning cases, it's about changing the system. The energy in the room was palpable. These weren't just colleagues. They were revolutionaries and business casual, armed with law degrees and righteous purpose. As evening fell, the others gradually departed, promising to return early the next morning. Marcus remained, wheeling himself around the space that represented his true ambition. He hadn't chosen law for wealth or status. He'd chosen it because, from a very young age, he'd understood that legal systems were human creations. And what humans build, humans can rebuild, better and more justly. He stopped at his simple desk, running his hand over the smooth surface. Someone, probably Amara, had framed the newspaper article about his courtroom victory and placed it on the desk. The photo caught him at a powerful moment, standing strong on his crutches, eyes forward, unbroken despite everything. Marcus pulled his laptop from his bag and began typing. There were briefs to write, precedents to research, and clients already waiting for tomorrow's appointments. His crutches leaned against the wall beside him, a reminder of the accident that had nearly taken his mobility but had somehow clarified his purpose. Outside his window, Washington continued its eternal dance of power and politics. Somewhere across town, Judge Harrington was contemplating the end of his career. But here, in this modest office, something new was beginning. Justice wasn't just about punishing the guilty or vindicating the innocent. Sometimes, it was about forcing the world to see what it had chosen to ignore. Sometimes, it took a 17-year-old on crutches to make an entire legal system stand up straighter. Marcus smiled slightly as he typed. There were many more Judge Harringtons out there. And he was just getting started. If this story inspired you, please like and subscribe for more content that challenges perceptions and celebrates triumph over adversity. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that our greatest limitations are often the ones we accept without question. And remember, true justice doesn't discriminate. It stands for everyone, especially those society tries to overlook.